A little under the weather, so I will be presiding over this meeting. If we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance, South Central students, if you can lead us in that.
They know it?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice, actually.
Roll call, Clerk Treasurer Parthoon.
Councilwoman Ficus.
Cutler. Present.
Councilwoman West is absent, and Councilwoman Konechny.
Present.
5 present, 2 absent.
Approval of minutes. Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Petitions and comments of citizens. We'll start with Carolyn Gardner.
I might pass these out.
Sure.
I only have 2 for each.
If you can state your name and address, please, for the record.
Gardner, 725 Pine Lake Avenue in LaPorte. And these lights that you're looking at are in my living room. One picture is with the overhead light in my living room on, one without, and the other one is me standing outside that same window. So you could get a better look at where it's coming from. And that is the LaPorte Marina. Those lights they're new. I've lived there since 1975 as an adult. I was raised there in the 50s. So I know those are not the same lights that they've been for years. Whether the hood is deflected a different direction, I do know that the lights were replaced. The LaPorte Marina owner, Tony, the person that answers his phone told me the lights were replaced. So they are not the same wattage or the direction is wrong, but I never had those lights before. And as I sit on my couch watching TV, those lights are glaring into my front room. And I've had contact with him on at least a dozen different ways, phone, leaving messages, calling, talking to him. I have contacted the mayor's office 3 or 4 times. They told me that the compliance officer couldn't find a problem, and this is why I'm here today, because you have to literally be standing in front of my window to see the problem.
Okay.
And it's very difficult for me to just have to see that all the time, every day. All night. It's on till, I think, 3 in the morning.
Okay.
So,
When did they change the lights approximately?
approximately 2 months ago.
And this is Phase Marina?
Well, it's LaPorte Marina,
Port
I
Marina?
believe, but it
Okay.
is Tony Fay.
Okay.
I think his last
On
name is
Beacon,
Fay.
it shows that, yeah.
Okay.
It's right next to the.
Right next to the yacht club.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And how many, looks like 3 or 4 lights?
There's 2 poles, and they have each got a couple of lights on it. And it's just really difficult. His grandma also complains, but I didn't want her here. I said, Grandma, no.
Well, thank you. We'll dig
you,
into
yeah.
this and we have your contact information on
You
there.
do.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll check with Jeff Batchelor and
All right, if
see what
he-
we find out, and I'll let
He
you know.
needs to be in my yard at 10 o'clock. You tell him, just give me a call, okay?
Okay, will do.
All right.
Thank you.
very much for checking this out for me.
4945.
All right, Susan Antijewski.
Hi, Sue Antashevsky, 101 Belden Street.
I recently ran for city council. I just wanted to come in tonight and congratulate you all for your wins. And I really do wish you for the best. Part of the job is to keep basic city business moving forward, but I would also like to remind you to include food whose members want to be involved and not one you anger by exclusion. Work for, include, and most importantly, listen to those who try to tell you what isn't working for them in this city. Granted, there will be outliers that everything bothers them, but most serious folks who need your help, or most folks who are serious just need your help with something. Don't fail them. Most who come up to this podium are looking for answers to questions, want to be heard on an issue, or bring a concern to your attention. With no discussion opportunity, please be proactive and reach out to those. Don't leave them hanging. Who wants to live in a city where they feel disregarded? More importantly, who wants to move to a city where citizens feel that they're disregarded? Nobody. A happy community is a magnet. I also encourage you all to explore the city. Leave your own neighborhoods, leave your work areas, leave your subdivisions, and really drive around and look around at what you see in the city. Every street, every nook and cranny. Many in this town are average folks living paycheck to paycheck, doing the best they can with what they have. Many in this room, well, some in this room, some of these kids, you'll grow up and be that way. I'm myself included. During the election forums, I could hear it in some of your voices when the streets and sidewalks were brought up, that you didn't really maybe necessarily want to hear it or think it was important. Streets and sidewalks are extremely important when our largest investments are what our homes that we bought in this city. All we ask for is a win here and there for us. We understand you want to grow the city, but we want you to understand that there needs to be investment to improve the surroundings in what we've invested in also. Lastly, I'm just not a good public speaker. Lastly, I implore the audience and all community members to hold this body accountable for the decisions they make on your behalf. A sign of a thriving community is the health of all the different aspects therein. This is your city. Fight for it. We're all invested in this town. The fight should be for everyone to have a better day in LaPorte, not just those who maybe have the power or the money. I really do wish you all good luck, and I hope you will listen to the folks in the city. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Richard Horner.
Richard Horner, 410 Allen Street, LaPorte, Indiana. This is regarding the occupancy of the Coca-Cola building. First of all, Councilman Galloway, we want to thank you for not turning your back on our neighborhood. It takes a lot of courage to oppose the conventional wisdom of the majority. You likely know the conventional wisdom is very often wrong. I had hoped in my later years to go quietly into the night. However, I cannot stand by quietly while my family and my neighbors are being threatened. The council never addressed the fact that people with severe mental illness will be eligible for residency. The shooter in the main shootings had severe mental illness. He did not have a previous history of violence. And while a person like this can randomly reside in a particular neighborhood, this council on housing opportunities proposes to potentially gather a couple of dozen in one place in a residential neighborhood. Is this the definition of the common sense touted on the campaign slogan I saw? Housing opportunity is among the most dangerous of snake oil salesmen believing their product is actually good for others. However, the promoters never seem to want to partake of their own medicine. We have heard from clergy that think endangering people without their consent is a Christian thing to do, and from a state representative that encouraged the bullying of a neighborhood into accepting the latest pop psychology sweeping the nation, even though he is part of a government that can find real solutions to the problem. It was in my lifetime that a group of very successful and intelligent people like yourselves, in a body similar to yours, withdrew support for the mentally ill and abandoned them to be on their own in society. That is the wisdom we're having to deal with today. Our neighborhood will not forget. They cannot, as they fear falling asleep each night, while all of you dream pleasant dreams knowing your families are secure. When, not if, problems occur, we will make sure the whole city knows all who are responsible. This fight is not over. History has proven you need not win battles, just the war. I therefore am announcing my intention to run for city council. The long campaign starts now. If elected, know that I do not play, follow the leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Standing committee reports, Councilwoman Ficus.
Park Board met on October 18th. John and Lois Dietrich attended the meeting and gave a proposal for the possible construction and purchase of 2 new piers and launches for the installation at Stone Lake Boat Launch. Currently, the launch is leased by the DNR, and their approval is needed for the project. The Civic Auditorium will be adding a 3% credit card processing fee for any charge over $100 for civic events. Mark Schreiber and Pam Carroll will be attending a conference in Fort Wayne November 14th through the 16th. So with this in mind, the November Park Board meeting was moved to Monday, November 13th, 4 p.m. at the park office. And then with Election Day yesterday, the Traffic Commission moved their monthly meeting to Tuesday, November 14th, 5 p.m. at the police station. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Galloway.
A Veterans Day program is this Friday at the Civic Auditorium, November 10th. It starts at 10:30. They'll have coffee and donuts from 9 to 10:15 in the lower level. And afterwards, veterans and their spouse can go for a free spaghetti lunch at the VFW. And if you're not a veteran, costs you $10. It's open to everybody. And the next night on Saturday, we have a veterans dance. Everybody's invited. We have pointing fingers. It's free.
All right. Thank you. Councilwoman Konechny.
The Airport Authority met this evening at 5:15 at the airport. Their next meeting will be Wednesday, December 13th at 5:15, also at the airport. And the Historic Preservation Commission will meet next on Tuesday, November 21st at 5:30 here in council chambers.
Thank you. Councilwoman Cutler.
The bid board will meet Monday, November 13th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers, and the UEA will meet Wednesday, November 15th at 4 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thanks. And I have nothing to report. We'll move on. Councilwoman Cutler.
Honorable Pro Tem. I move to read an ordinance by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Go ahead.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the City of LaPorte, Indiana, as enacted August 21st, 2017, which is a part of the Chapter 82 of the Municipal Code of the City of LaPorte by amending the 2017 revised City of LaPorte Joint Zoning Ordinance.
And before we vote on it, Bert Cook with LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership.
Yeah, good evening to the council. Bert Cook, Executive Director of the LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership. Just add a couple comments to this. We obviously covered this at your last meeting, and I mentioned at that meeting, and I'll say it again, I believe we should be constantly looking at our zoning ordinance, and when there are opportunities to better that, we should take advantage of those, and this is one of those opportunities where we can kind of add some clarity to the language and better reflect what we see in the market on a day-to-day basis. And so that's the request. The Plan Commission obviously has made their recommendation to you, and would urge you to pass this and adjust the zoning ordinance accordingly.
Questions from the council?
Motion to approve the ordinance as
Second.
presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Konechny.
Honorable Pro Tem, I'd like to introduce a petition for voluntary annexation, read for the first time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Petition for voluntary annexation into the city of LaPorte, Indiana. CL Road Corporation, herein owner, makes an application to the Common Council of the city of LaPorte, Indiana for the voluntary annexation of land to the city of LaPorte, Indiana, and for the zoning of that land in Pleasant Township, LaPorte County, Indiana, and in support of which petition alleges and affirms as follows. Number one, the owner owns 2 parcels of land, more particularly described in Exhibits A to B attached hereto. Number 2, owner desires that these 2 parcels of land be annexed to the city of LaPorte, Indiana, by proper ordinance. Number 3, the owners are 100% of the owners of the land sought to be annexed. Number 4, the properties sought to be annexed are north of East 250 South, west of South 200 East, and east of US Route 35. Number 5, the property tax key numbers are as follows. A, Exhibit A parcel 46-11-18-200-001.000-057, 158.31 acres. B, Exhibit B parcel 46-11-17-100-001.000-057, 116.03 acres. Number 6, the name and the address of the property owners of all the petition sites, and that is CL Road Corporation, 1251 East 250 South, LaPorte, Indiana, 46350.
Thank you.
Bert Cook, would you like to speak on this?
I will reintroduce myself, but if you don't remember at this point, we've got bigger problems. But Bert Cook, Executive Director of the LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership. So you will remember we've gone through this process a few times since you all have been in office. But this is a petition for voluntary annexation in the southern edge of the city. We've done another annexation here, and I think that's went very well for that property owner. And so we've been approached by others who would like to become part of the city. Obviously, this would increase opportunities that we have, and it is adjacent to the city limits. So I would suggest we accept this petition. And as you'll remember, there is a process that we will follow that will go the next 3 or so months as we go through the process to ultimately annex the property at the conclusion of that procedure. Happy to answer questions if you have them.
The one comment I would make again is going back to, I think, 2016 when the council passed the ordinance restricting new customers outside the city from getting utilities. This is the exact reason for that. You know, these farmers see an opportunity inside the city limits with our utilities for future development.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Great.
And again, this is 100% voluntary. They approached the
approached
city,
us.
correct?
Correct. This is their request of you.
Wonderful. Okay.
We do, if we could have a motion to accept the petition. This isn't a vote to accept the annexation, just to accept this petition. The next step will be to publish notice for a hearing, which will take place, should be a December meeting, probably the second one based off of the dates, so.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the petition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And just real quick, because we've had various types of annexations, this is a super voluntary annexation. We will have a public hearing, again, in December. There'll also be a fiscal plan that is prepared, just as there is for any type of annexation. And there'll be an ordinance that will come back to you in December as well that will take two meetings as well, so. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Councilman Galloway.
Your Honor, I'd like to introduce an ordinance for the first time in its entirety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Introduction of an ordinance creating funds for the Department of Justice and the Department of the Treasury Equitable Sharing for state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies' asset forfeiture programs. Fund number 2445, Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA Asset Forfeiture Fund. Fund number 2446, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, Asset Forfeiture Fund. Fund number 2447, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Asset Forfeiture Fund. Whereas the Department of Justice and Department of Treasury asset forfeiture programs, first and foremost, law enforcement programs, they remove the tools of crime from criminal organizations, deprive wrongdoers of the proceeds of their crimes, recover property that may be used to compensate victims, and deter crime. And whereas federal law authorizes the Attorney General and the Secretary of Treasury to share federally forfeited property with participating state and local enforcement agencies. And whereas any state, local, or tribal law enforcement agency that is a participant in the equitable sharing program and directly participates in investigation or prosecution resulting in a federal forfeiture may request an equitable share of the net proceeds of the forfeiture. And whereas, except as noted in the Guide to Equitable Sharing for state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies, equitable shared funds will be used by law enforcement and agencies for law enforcement purposes only. The uses outlined in the guide show permissible and impermissible expenditures, and the local law enforcement agency must perform applicable sub-recipient monitoring requirements pursuant to OMB, uniform administration requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards. And now let it be ordained by the Council of the City of LaPorte, Funds 2445, 2446, and 2447 be created to read as follows. Fund 2445, Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA Asset Forfeiture Fund. Fund 2446, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, Set Forfeiture Fund. Fund 2447, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Asset Forfeiture Fund. This ordinance shall be effective upon passage and approval by the mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Galloway. Chief Breton, if I can get you to come up and share some information on this.
Basically, in a nutshell, this is our participation with the drug unit, HIDA, which is High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. We seize funds from drug dealers, and then that's divided among the departments that participate. One of the big ones we got, one of the biggest amounts we got is shared with South Bend, Michigan City, the Sheriff's Department, and us, and then whatever federal agency of these three that was involved, they take a cut as well. So we can use this for any law enforcement equipment, things like that. Some of these cases that came across that we're setting up these funds for are almost 4 years old. So till this is adjudicated, it takes a little while.
Any questions?
So I'm assuming State Board of Accounts wants specific
These
accounts for
line
these to
items.
go.
Yeah, these, there's a whole guide,
Right.
29-page guide on
Great reading.
accounting and record keeping for each of these funds. So since they're all administered by the DEA, the ATF, and the FBI, we have to have different checking accounts. Because they're interest-bearing, we have to have different checking accounts, they have to be in different funds. So this will create the fund for us to then receipt the funds, for Chief Breton and the police department to then spend the funds according to the federal guidelines outlined. So a lot of work went into this.
It's very specific to where it can be spent.
Okay.
And
Thank
the
you.
laundry list is long, so.
They're gonna make you work just as hard to spend it, Chief.
That ordinance will move to the November 20th meeting. Councilwoman Ficus.
Honorable Pro Tem, I move to introduce an ordinance read for the first time in its entirety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Let's see. Additional appropriation for ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Fund Number 2401. Whereas it has been determined that it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget. Now therefore, Section 1, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of LaPorte, LaPorte County, Indiana, that for the expenses of the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the fund named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Fund Number 2401. ARP Coronavirus Local FRF Civic Improvements. Amount requested, $399,840. Amount approved, $399,840. For total amount requested and approved of $399,840.
Okay, and this requires a public hearing, which I will now open. It is 6:26 PM on Wednesday, November 8th. Would anyone from the public like to speak on this?
I will say that this additional appropriation was published in the Herald Dispatch on October 18th, 2023.
Anyone from the public like to speak? All right, it is 6:26 PM, Wednesday, November 8th, and I will close the public hearing. And this will move to November 20th as well.
Yes,
And again, Councilwoman Fekes.
I apologize, I did that out of order.
that's okay.
So, again, Honorable Pro Tem, I move to introduce an ordinance read for the first time in its entirety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Additional appropriation for ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Fund Number 2401. Whereas it has been determined that it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget. Now therefore, Section 1, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of LaPorte, LaPorte County, Indiana, that for the expenses of the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the fund named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Fund Number 2401, Clear Lake Loop. Amount requested, $1,630,000. Amount approved, $1,630,000. For a total amount requested and approved of $1,630,000.
Thank you. And before we open the public hearing, Clerk Treasurer Porte, if you want to just shed some light on both of these.
Sure.
We've already approved these, correct? It's just expenditures coming out and in an effort of transparency.
Yes, we did not budget any of the ARP money from the start so that we could hold public hearings in case there was discussion. I will also note that we have ordinance number 13-2021, which created the ARP fund. And then we had resolution 18-2022 and resolution 12-2022 that outlined what the council approved to spend the American Rescue Plan funds on. And there are several, what is quoted in the resolution as transformational City of LaPorte projects. These projects fall, or these expenditures fall under those projects and within the budgets of those projects. So those are available for the public. And I've got both copies of the resolutions with us tonight if anyone has any questions.
Great, thank you.
And I will also say right now, sorry, that this additional appropriation was also published in the Herald Dispatch on October 20th, 2023.
Okay, and I will now open a public hearing. It is 6:29 PM, Wednesday, November 8th. Would anyone from the public care to speak on this? And seeing nobody, I will now close the public hearing at 6:29 PM, Wednesday, November 8th. And this will move to the November 20th meeting as well. Councilwoman Cutler.
Honorable Pro Tem, I move to introduce a resolution read for the first and only time in its entirety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Resolution to transfer funds within the 2023 budgets. Whereas there are additional monies needed in certain line items in the 2023 budgets in order to pay for essential services and obligations. Now therefore be it and is hereby resolved by the Common Council of the City of LaPorte, Indiana, that the following transfers be made within the following budgets for the year 2023. Motor Vehicle Highway, MVH, to Motor Vehicle Highway Restricted, MVHR. 2201-524 to 2203-524 from 111 MVH salaries to 111 MVH restricted salaries, $10,134.54. From 121 MVH impress to 121 MVH restricted impress, $1,739.23. From 122 MVH FICA Medicare to 122 MVH restricted FICA Medicare, $761.55. Park and Recreation, Beechwood, 2204-800, from 121 impress to 111 salaries, $6,500. From 123 unemployment to 111 salaries, $1,000. From 315 professional services to 111 salaries, $1,400. From 351 utilities to 111 salaries, $2,000. From 315 professional services to 122 FICA Medicare, $100. From 331 printing advertising to 361 repairs maintenance, $1,000. Seated Community Development and Planning, 2209-103, from 211 office supplies to 391 other services, $200. Park non-reverting, 221-803, from 351 utilities to 391 other services, $7,500. Civic non-reverting, 55504-803, from 351 utilities to 391 other services, $10,000. From 391.002 event costs to 391 other services, $10,000. From 391.002 event costs to 441 equipment, $5,000. End of resolution.
And I assume this is just housekeeping.
Housekeeping, budgets are estimates, so departments are shifting appropriations as needed by year end. So you'll probably see a transfer resolution every council meeting until the end of the year.
Any questions from the council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, other business. As Councilman Galloway pointed out, I'll reiterate, Veterans Day is Friday, and at the Civic, coffee and donuts downstairs from 9 to 10:15, and followed by the ceremony, and then after that, veterans and one guest are invited for free lunch. Also, tomorrow, correct, the Healthcare Foundation is holding a Passport to Lifestyle and Health Expo for older adults and caregivers. This begins at 9 a.m. and goes until noon. There will be activities and resources, food and drinks, health screenings, and some social networking. But it should be a great event for our seniors and caregivers. Finally, thanks to Councilwoman Konechny, Clerk Treasurer Barthune, and Ashley Knoll for helping pass out turkeys today at the Civic. And if there are no other comments, Councilman Galloway?
I do know at the Civic tomorrow, Lalamere is going to have their
Oh,
open
sorry,
practice
yeah.
at 6 p.m. So, and I think the schedule just got released for the high school basketball tournament here at the Civic in January.
The practice starts at 5:30 p.m.
Sorry.
At the Civic, and then after the practice, any kids in attendance have the opportunity to go on the court, meet the players, shoot around, and have some fun. So that should be a great event. Councilman Galloway?
My turn, Nick? Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.